And
Yeah.
I think people need to be so deliberate right now about how they think about their tools. And I
Mm.
mean that, meaning everything you put into a tool is going to come back to haunt you.
Today, we will be sitting down with Chris Dancy to discuss Airtable and AI. Chris has been somebody that's been at the forefront of these sort of technologies with the wearable technology revolution a while ago, and naturally talking about AI for some time now and how it's going to affect our daily lives. In this conversation, Chris and I actually talk initially about Airtable. One of the main things that Chris came on the channel for was to discuss how they use Airtable and really advance that. Now, in this conversation, we will be expanding that into artificial intelligence and exploring how Chris thinks about AI, how his Airtable is reflecting that at the moment, and how they're thinking about the future of technologies that is to come. This is actually one of the most interesting conversations I've had in the last couple of months. No offense to anyone, but it actually really pointed a lot of conversations and focus on AI and how we actually should think about prompts, and in particular, how we should embrace the technology in our daily lives right now. So without further ado, you can find everything about Chris below, including some of his more recent Airtable conference stuff, and also a lot more about his Twitter and his site, and also how he's evolving this Airtable side of stuff. So a big thank you to Chris. I'm very excited to have this conversation, and hopefully we can really expand on it and grow to be a lot further in the conversation of AI. So thank you everyone for watching. Please do like if you enjoy, comment with your thoughts, and subscribe here to the channel.
Like, one of the biggest things that I think probably the biggest video we've ever done on the channel was the Airtable video, because well, number one, it was sort of mental, because obviously we had to take it down initially because of the bank details being in there, which was, I really apologize for that again. But it also got a lot of people had that conversation of like, okay, Airtable is a potential complete life organization system, and they never really thought of it, and you sort of opened up a lot of doors for people there. So I think that's probably a good starting point, is how has, since we last chatted, your Airtable evolved into what it is today? Because I've seen a bit of it in terms of it being a bit more, is even more values driven, I think, from what you last showed me on last call.
Yeah, so I think before we get into that, I have to say thank you, because like I had a life before Keep Productive, like where I was a speaker and a writer and had a couple TV shows and like fun stuff, right? So like, I'm not a household name, but like I don't have to have a real job. I'm somewhere in that kind of nether world of old influence and new influence. That being said, once your video came out, everyone was like every email I got, and I still get emails to this day about that video. And I think it was the great thumbnail you put on it saying, can you help me with Airtable? So it's weird. From that one video, I became known for Airtable. And then because of that, I started a couple conferences and a bunch of other stuff. So I guess before we even get into what's changed on it, thank you. Thank you. I don't know, because I still struggle with the fact that people think of me as Airtable. But like, I don't know, to me, Airtable is just part of my life. It's not really like something I do. But yeah, thank you for all of that, Francesco. That journey for me from when I demoed my system to you to now has been radical. If you remember, I created that system because I really wanted to focus on getting married. I got married in 2018. I had a lot of life organization systems. I used all the great tools like everyone else over the decades, Evernote and all these other tools. I even did a little stint with Notion. But for me, how do I combine all of the things that I do in my life, whether it be my finances, my business, my spouse's business, our home, the things we buy together? Airtable just made more sense to me because it was a relational database. But when I built that system, it really had to be about, well, what is kind of the relationship between myself and everything around me? And that meant I had to go back to the drawing board and like actually map it out. You'll remember I did this kind of crazy chart that showed everything about my life, how it was related to each other, and where it was going. And then from there, I had to take these 5 big areas that would cause stress in our family, whether it be one of us getting sick or losing a job or something in our house, and it turned it into the system. And that system literally became me mapping out my spouse, our pets, our home, and then taking that and deciding, well, what's important for us? Before I do one dashboard, before I do one automation, what's important? And that's really where the base of that mental system came from. And that was this idea of our values. So what are these values that we both share? How do we tie our tasks, our interactions, our bills, all those other things? Does this all coming back to you now?
Oh, I remember. Yeah, it was very. I think that was the most interesting thing that sometimes a lot of people forget about. Everyone jumps into the like low level view of tasks like 10,000 feet, but they like you look at it at 50,000 feet, which is nice because that's where you should start from. I learned a lot from where I should start from, what's important to me for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I read a book a long time ago, The Road Less Traveled. It's probably one of the first productivity books I ever read. It's from the 80s, I think. And it starts with start with the end in mind. And it's, for me, the end in mind when I was building that system, and that system today is morphed into something bigger. But it was really like, I'm going to be morbid. So I apologize to the audience. I'm going to die. Right. I'm not going to be young forever, and I'm not going to be able to do. It's like, what does that end look like? That means I need to manage these things through. If you just create a task management system, everything becomes a task. But if you create a values management system, nothing becomes a task unless it filters into a value.
Yeah, that's true.
People don't get that. You know what I mean? You can fill a million checklists, but you can't fill a million values. So that was kind of super important to me. So it's really evolved since then. I think at a high level, understanding where it was and where it needed to go. When we first built the system, and we're in the live system now, by the way, it was really about understanding who we were and how these values related to everything we had going in our life, how those things then rolled up to our health, whether it be the pills we were taking or surgeries we had, to like the important things, like what's happening when. We've got about 200 years worth of family history, homes, et cetera, in our system. We can zoom in anywhere on a map and see our entire family history, to like, what are our goals each year? What are our projects? I'm going to do the entire video that you and I did in 20 minutes last time in 2, to then how do those projects then roll into tasks? How do those tasks roll into interactions? People, there's us right now. Francesco, into things I'm thinking about in our inbox, the people that I deal with every single day, the organizations and businesses that I deal with, the accounts, don't worry, no credit card numbers this time, the bills we have, all the transactions that happen, all the documentations in our life, et cetera, all the assets, the furniture we buy, our house, our stuff like that. My husband's Nightmare Before Christmas collection, the places we store all of these things in our homes, the apps and services that I use, the different products I sell as a business, my customers portfolios where I keep all the work we do for them, everything about my website, some synced calendars that pull the data from other places, and then customer references for me. From there, I really had to say, how would this evolve? If I really had to think about how this would evolve, the first thing was some of these systems needed to have systems. So after we met last time, I actually built the first of 2 sites for our home. So the latest version of this is the home we live in now. And this literally is a website where either myself or a friend or family member can come in and log in and interact with our home. It also allows people who are working on our house to get to our Airtable data. What's the warranty on our dryer? When did we buy something? How do I find something or fix something? Where's the manual to make the TV work? But more than that, it allowed us to kind of showcase the updates we were doing to our home. Like, what did it look like before we did this? What did it look like after? This was super important to us to give kind of one of these external systems a place to live on the web. After we got into this kind of home-based system, I personally came in and said, well, how can I now externalize more of that? So I went on this journey to release a back-end version of my life to my friends and family that allowed me to come in here and say, well, there's who I am, because I have a website that most people do, christianity.com, but how can I start to interact with myself? Like, what is it I do for the world? What is it the world does for me? And how can I answer some common questions? With the goal being, how do I take all this data I have about my life and make it accessible to anyone? When I say anyone, now my friends, my family, kind of like the house, they all have a portal. So this is the entry page to our life. So whether you're my healthcare provider or my CPA or my lawyer or anyone else, or even my spouse or our friends and families, we have a website now that they can log into and interact with us. So think of like the most world's hyper personal Wikipedia, right? So all that data you saw with our values and everything became externalized first in how we shared our assets, our home, our other assets to the world. But then it came in how do we share ourselves, which got me thinking, if I have a way to really share these things with the world where I come in and I don't have Biscuit, you and I made Biscuit famous, by the way. But we now have a way to get to the common things where we do every day, our tasks, there's today's tasks. When I think about our home, is there a place I can log in and see the house in real time, right? So this is kind of our private view of the house and what warranties and things are going on later. It became obvious to me by 2020 that I needed a way to understand all of this at a more personal and internal level. And that's where I get into what Airtable, that system is called now, called Airtable. And this new system really had to be a front end for everything that we just didn't value, but everything we felt. Because emotions are so much bigger than, you and I have talked about emotions and technology before. So Airtable really was this next evolutionary step for my Airtable to really think about what my Airtable would look like if I were to recreate it today, now that I've been married and I've externalized all these systems and my values are present in everything I do. Do you want to learn some more about Airtable, or do you understand kind of why I did Airtable?
Yeah, I do. I think it makes sense. It's like almost you sort of like built a front end to it, right?
Yep.
And
I'm gonna show you
like
that.
the back end. Yeah, and it's
Yep.
like sort of extended. So yeah, feel free to show us.
So whereas Airtable was a bunch of data that eventually got a kind of front end first when I was with you with Biscuit and then through these websites, right? Airtable had to have a native front end from the very beginning. And when I was thinking about Airtable and how it needed to function, it needed to function on the simple premise, and a lot of apps do this, like what's happening today. But when I built this, what's happening today, it had to be more than just today's date, right? So I looked at everything from what time's the sun come up to what season am I in, all these other types of things. And I did 10 years worth of Airtable. So when I initially built Airtable, it was just for that 1 year, but now I've got 10 full years of Airtable in here, so going out to 2030. And you're like, well, why would you do that? Because you've got 10 years of seasons, and I have no idea where the apps will be in 10 years. So from 2020 to 2030, I created this system where we could do that. That allowed me to start coming in here and saying, what does my day look like from an interface level? So today, the way Airtable functions is, even if my spouse and some of my friends who also use our Airtable, they don't like all the fancy bells and whistles I do. So there's like really simple journal entry. You can come in here every single day. You can write down how you're feeling in the morning, rate it, same type of thing. You'll see a lot of this kind of in Notion type of dashboards. But I kind of wanted to say, what would it be like if I allowed people to say, okay, I've learned to journal. This is just Airtable for today for a simple journal. There's Airtable for yesterday for the same journal. You can see how I was feeling yesterday, etc. This is the new version of me showing credit cards, me showing my feelings online. But then the next version would be emotions. So like, how would you deal with emotions? So same type of thing where I can log how I'm feeling 3 times a day. You sometimes don't have to do it 3 times a day. But now you could say, well, what feelings you're having. So I built in a whole emotional engine behind this thing. So if I wanted to come in here and say I'm feeling happy, it would go ahead and log that emotion. There were over 100 emotions tied to the back end of Airtable, where before I was logging a lot of interactions with people, and all that still gets done, but a lot of that's automated now. Now it's about the feelings around those things. But maybe you're working with your emotions now and you want to lose some weight or get your sleep better. So I built a whole back end then to be able to start to collect the information around what am I eating? This is today, so there's nothing. I haven't finished eating today. I was also yesterday. What am I eating, etc. Then, of course, I layered in the values part because I wanted, again, you be able to do that. So now you'll notice there are things in like how productive was I? So again, if I go look at yesterday, you'll see my actually productivity time. So that's pulling from another different place, all the way up to spirituality, to what I call now the Pantheon journal. So the ultimate version of Airtable, and this is the one I use. It's going to make some people really upset and overwhelming. It allows my Airtable now allows me to come in and see my intentions that I set every year, season, and quarter. So I can come in here and actually pull these up and look at them. Also look at my goals for the year, which are different than my intentions. It shows me where I am, believe it or not, in the moon cycle. I pay attention to that now. It's kind of one of these things that I really enjoy, like seeing kind of the full cycle instead of month to month to month, moon cycle, moon cycle. It actually has a system now where it'll pull a tarot card for me automatically. And then I did an integration with ChatGPT now where it will go ahead and write a reading of that tarot card based on how I'm feeling. So it takes into account my emotions for the day. It takes into account what today is, how I was feeling yesterday. And then, for example, if I look at today, I had a question for it. I came in here and said, how can I make the most of my interview with Keep Productive today? And went ahead and looked at the god or goddess that it suggested that I use, because I built a god pantheon in Airtable. And that just means I have a whole system now of gods and goddesses that are either real or AI inspired that can influence my data from any kind of day and point. So now it says, hey, it's the waxing gibbous moon, time for preparation full moon, aligns with your emotion, which is I was curious this morning. It's your upcoming video with Keep Productive. And then kind of tells me some things to think about. It looks at our old relationships, like every time I've ever logged something with you. So then it takes all of that information, piles it through. I'm gonna go to yesterday where there's a lot more data because today's still happening. And then kind of gives me a summary of, there's my question for yesterday. And there's the god it selected for me. Then it takes all of those kind of magical things and then puts them there. Remember, my day-to-day stuff is already being taken care of on my Airtable. So like feeding kind of the spiritual side to me. So again, logging sleep, my health, my feelings. I was feeling optimistic yesterday afternoon, end of the day, and then coming down and tying into what was the highest value I had each day. Remember, everything goes to their value. What was the lowest? And then it looks at all the places I went, people I contacted by email, any money I spent, people who influenced my day or organization. So I was working on some content for you yesterday, right? So like you automatically got tagged in there. This allows me to instantly see my feelings as they relate not to just the things I care about, my values, but the people and places, right? So often our systems don't reveal to us what the problem is. Who is the problem? Where is the problem? And then, of course, it allows me to, any photos I take automatically get logged in here. And all of that rolls up to these beautiful charts and graphs now that I didn't have in the old system, where I can actually see my emotional health, my mental health, my physical health, my values, which ones are going well, which ones aren't. I can look at it any single day, but now I can take like 12 years worth of data that I had in my system and then relive any day in real time. So I can come in here at the end of a quarter, end of a year, and look at it. So Airtable really became, you said my old Airtable was the most advanced Airtable ever. This really became what would be beyond that.
Yeah.
What would be an easy way for me to get in touch with myself at a deeper level?
Yeah, it's sort of like it's taking all of the previous information, but sort of like it lives and breathes to think around the mindful health side of you. But I think what's probably, I think what you do really well is you're able to connect everything to high level information, which I really like. But how would somebody, because I think for a lot of people watching that, they might be like, whoa, this is too much level of depth for me. How would you recommend people find the balance of taking that step forward? Because I always see you as somebody that will eventually do this is what people will eventually be doing in 3 or 4 years time as AI becomes more relevant. But what advice would you give to people that are making the step towards something like that, or would want to take a step towards something like that?
I think we need to get really clear about merging what we do with productivity with what we do with health. And I don't mean like, your exercise. I mean, what you do for yourself. I think so much of the way we think about journaling is productivity. It's just slow productivity, right?
Yeah.
So when you're journaling, you're just slowly reviewing your tasks. You're slowly being mindful of your goals, right? And I think in a world where AI is going to start to take care of and do more and more, and if you would have told me when we built our video that I'd be able to use AI now to look back at our relationship and give me advice, that's a lot better. I won't say better. That's a lot different than asking AI to write an email to you for me. Yeah. And I think people need to be so deliberate right now about how they think about their tools. And I mean that, meaning everything you put into a tool is going to come back to haunt you. Right? Yeah. That means we need to slow down our relationship with tools. And that's why, to me, Airtable, I can agree, I can totally see how it would look overwhelming. That's why I built like a really simple journaling and then stuff. But Airtable had to be the slowest possible way to get the most things done.
Yeah.
Whereas most productivity is about getting the most things done as fast as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is anything ever really done if it's quick?
Yeah, that's true. But I think what it is an example of is it's more an example of a collective capture of information that makes sense in the background. But
Correct.
for people in the future that will be looking at their tools now, you're right. Everything they add now will be, to essence, something like this. But
Exactly.
you're just building it a couple of years advanced.
Yeah, I mean, if Todoist will probably, it already sorts, like what you want, what you should be focusing on today, right? But it's taking that input based on what you've told it over the time. If you never told it that your kids were important, it will always prioritize getting that video out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, 100%, because it's very like day to day with the tools that we got. They never, like, there's very few that focus on, unless you build it like you've done.
Yeah, that's why Airtable was today, Airtable was forever.
Yeah.
What does God's productivity look like?
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.